was there some culture shock when you first moved to Mexico?
Yeah, there's some cultural differences for sure, because the I would say the people here are like Swedish people and culture compared to Mexican people and culture. Um, I have a theory that with the climate or with the heat comes the people. So if you're from a colder country, the people are a little bit cold. Doesn't have to be negative, but in a cold, polite way. But when you come to the warmer zones, you get more warm people. So just an example, when you say hello to people here in Mexico, it's hugs and it's kisses on the cheek, and you have to, if you arrive and it's a group there waiting, you have to go around the table and just kiss on the cheek, and then be very a warm greeting, compared to what I'm used to, more like, yeah, what's up, sit, take your chair, and then the same when you leave, you have to go the whole table again.
Mm-hmm.
But in Sweden, it's just, we gotta go, and then you go. So that's one example of like the cultural differences of the heat, the warmness of the people, and I really like that. There's good and bad with everything, of course, but I think I have the perfect mix in my life right now of just like the two contrasts, and I really like it.
Mm-hmm. Because it does seem like they're kind of, the Swedish culture and the Mexican culture seem to be on kind of opposite ends of the extremes, right?
Yeah,
Where
yeah, I would say so.
like
That's
a little bit more
good.
reserved, or potentially a lot more reserved, versus a lot more kind of open and collective and communal.
Yeah, I would say
Um,
that's a very good description.
and I think Canada is somewhere in between, but I think that it's probably close, like pretty close to where Sweden is at, maybe a little bit more towards the middle. Because we also have that American influence, and Americans have a bit of a reputation for being a little bit kind of, what's the word, a little bit superficial and small talk and, hey, how are you, and so I think
Mm-hmm.
we probably do that a little bit more than Swedes or Germans or Austrians, but then we definitely don't do it as much as Mexicans and Colombians, right? So
Yeah, there's like
we're
a
like,
scale.
yeah, it's a sliding scale, right? And I
Yeah,
think we're kind of more in the middle. But I notice the same things that you're talking about with having to greet people, and I really feel like in Latin cultures there are more kind of social rules that you have to follow. Like there's a bit of an obligation that this is how you communicate with people. You're supposed to, be a little bit more outgoing and be greeting people and engaging and asking them questions. Where in Canada, you can do that if you want to, but there's no obligation that you have to.
yeah,
You can just kind of do your own thing as well. And so being in Colombia really stretched me in that way, where it was like I needed to be a little bit more outgoing than I guess I am. And I
yeah,
didn't realize how independent and reserved I was until I went there. And then I was like,
yeah.
oh, wow, this is like people do things together all the time. Like you're always
Mm-hmm.
doing stuff. And like sometimes I was like, I need my space here. But it's just, like you said, it's not better or worse. It's just different. It's just a different set of values, right?
Yeah, and it challenges you as a person. If you come from a more reserved place, and then you have to be more out there. I mean, it's a good way to just to grow.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. It kind of pushes you in different directions, and it's very interesting. The way people greet is so different in different cultures, and you can really see it quickly how how different cultures do it. Like for example, here in Vancouver, there's a very big Chinese population, and a lot of our friends are from China or Hong Kong or Taiwan, and when we hang out with them, my, Colombian fiance runs out to them. Hey guys, how are you? Gives them a hug, and you can see them in their face. They're just like this, like, oh, they feel so uncomfortable. They're like, oh, don't touch me,
Yeah,
and then like, the Canadians, some people hug, some people don't, but everyone's okay with the handshake. We're okay with that. But even that's a little bit far for a lot of Chinese people. They don't even want to touch, right? And so like it is a sliding scale, and you can see it a lot with how people greet each other. But I mean, for you guys, you're not only living in a different culture, but you have an international relationship as well. So what? How does that dynamic work for you guys? Like you have Swedish culture and you have Mexican culture together. What culture is your common one? Is it more to one side or the other, or is it a combination of both?
I think it's for sure a combination, but the Mexican the part is a little stronger. It's more powerful, so it pushes down the Swedish culture a little bit.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, we do a nice blend, and then of course our language, our common tongue is English, so we both are talking our second language, which is pretty crazy to think about. I don't like when you are talking from just day to day basis, you forget that you're speaking a whole different language that you're not really used to, you know?
Right. And how is that like speaking a different language in your relationship? Do you feel like part of your personality is not able to be expressed, or do you feel like your English is so good now that it's the same?
I think it changes a little bit, of course, with all the languages, because even though my English is okay, I can manage pretty good. Uh, it's still the level. If my Swedish is 100%, and then let's say the English is 90%, I'm maybe 90% me, if that makes sense.
Right.
And then if my Spanish is, if I'm being generous, 20% right now, then I'm having a hard time being my full self in Spanish. So maybe I can be 20% me in Spanish.
Mm-hmm. Or I guess another way to look at it is that you are losing 80% of yourself, or
Hmm.
in English, you're losing 10% of yourself, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's languages kind of cut both ways, right? When you speak them really well, I feel like it unlocks a different part of your personality. But if you're still learning it, it also kind of removes a piece of your personality that you aren't able to express fully. And I went through those phases being in Colombia. My Spanish is not perfect by any means, but it's a lot better now than it was on my first trip. And other than my my girlfriend in Colombia, nobody spoke English, and so I could speak English with her and be 100%, but if I spoke with anybody else, it was it's like 15% or 20%, like you're saying, and so that was challenging to me. It did feel in some ways like I was a bit isolated from the culture that I was in, because I couldn't do anything on my own. And I like to be kind of a little bit more independent, but I couldn't even really leave the house without my girlfriend and go to the store because it was uncomfortable for me to have these interactions with people at the grocery store, at the cafe,
Yeah.
or whatever. And talking about money, having to understand all the numbers, how much is this is 2,500, this one's 3,700, and then making change and stuff. Like it just seemed a little bit too much to take on. But then over time, I got better at that, and then it became a little bit easier. It became a lot easier, I guess. And but yeah, like where are you at in that process then with navigating the language in Mexico?
Yeah, that's a good. I feel like that's a good line to cross when you're comfortable enough to go out by yourself and go to like a grocery store, something simple, or take an Uber ride by yourself and not feel anxious about is he gonna talk to me or am I gonna be able to answer or
Yeah.
um. But what really helped me was the internship I did here the first 12 weeks I was here. And at that travel agency, it was like one person that spoke English. So I had to force myself to not be insecure, or of course I was, but I had to go out there. So it was like a good way to break that barrier. And now I'm over that line, so I can be independent if I want
Hmm.
to.
Yeah.
I would say if you were to drop me off in a random Spanish-speaking country somewhere, I could survive there for
Hmm.
sure,
Hmm.
but maybe I wouldn't be able to go to the deepest of philosophical conversations and be a good contributor there.
And do you think that you will begin to uh, kind of use more English or sorry, not more English, use more Spanish with your girlfriend as well moving forward?
Yeah, for sure. Just if I compare my Spanish from when I arrived here for the first time until now, it's a huge difference. And for example, with her mom, she doesn't speak that much English or barely any. So there I have to like establish my Spanish so I can communicate with her, and now I can have like longer talks and communicate well and understand, and so that's very helpful.
What do you think the hardest part of learning Spanish is?
I would say it's two different things. One thing is just from like in for myself in my mind, of really pushing yourself out there, and because I've never some people love to learn languages and have an easy time doing it. It's fun and everything. But for me, I've been trying to do some. I had like a private teacher. I had some Zoom calls with, but it's going back to school in that way. It's not really. I can't learn that way. I have to go out and force myself to speak in the real world. There's just no other way, and so that's been one problem to, or one hard thing for me, to always be like pushing yourself to speak more and more. And then there's some grammatic uh, uh, hardness when it comes to past tense, or verbs are pretty hard for me also, because you change the like hablo, hablas, habla, depending on the person. It's not you speak, I speak, they speak. It's not. You have to change the whole word depending on the context of the people. So that was a little challenging also.